Hello again, class. For our next video lesson, we're on section 5-9. We're talking about complex numbers, which are also called imaginary numbers. So complex numbers or imaginary numbers, I use both terms. They mean the exact same thing. Okay? So here's what we got here. Whenever we've been, from the day you were born up until now, we've only been talking about what are called real numbers. But there are such things called imaginary numbers. Imaginary numbers are obviously not real. So if we take the square root of a negative 16, if we do that in our calculator, the square root of a negative 16, we press enter, and we get an error because it says it's a non-real answer. That's what this says right here. The answer is not real. So there's times in previous math classes how if you've had to take the square root of something, and if it's negative, you don't put no solution, you put a non-real answer. And the reason for that is because there is an answer, it's imaginary, it's not real. And that's what we're talking about today is non-real solutions or imaginary numbers. The reason why there's no such thing as an answer, a real answer for this, is because there's no number that you can square and get a negative 16. Because a positive times a positive is a positive, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So there's no one single number that you can square and get a negative 16. So to take the square root of a negative 16, you can't do it and get a real solution. But there is such a thing called as a non-real answer. And here's what that is. The square root of a negative 1 is I. So whenever you see the square root of a negative 1, this I means it's imaginary. It's not real, it's an imaginary number. So if we look at this one, we'll just go to our first example problem. The square root of a negative 25. You cannot take the square root of a negative number and get a real solution. However, we can get an imaginary solution. I'm going to break this up. Okay, I can take the square root of a negative 25. However, I can take the square root of a positive 25, and I could also take the square root of a negative 1. The square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of negative 1 is imaginary, or I. So our answer here for the square root of a negative 25 is 5i, and this is our answer for problem number 1. So whenever we see a negative number underneath the radical, we can always take out an I. That's going to be the main point with these first several problems. So now for problem number 2, the square root of a negative 16 is the same thing as 16 multiplied by a negative 1. Square root of 16 is 4, square root of a negative 1 is I. So our answer for problem number 2 is 4i. Let's take a look at problem number 3. I can take the square root of a negative 50. I cannot take the square root of a positive 50. However, I can break this up into 25 times 2 times a negative 1. The square root of 25 comes outside the radical as a positive 5. The square root of a negative 1 is an I, so I can take out 5i, and what's left underneath the radical? The square root of 2. So there's my answer for problem number 3. So it's kind of a review lesson from a lot of different past lessons, with the one new thing of the square root of a negative 1 is I. You guys try number 4 on your own. Hopefully you got this. It's the square root of 9 times 3 times a negative 1. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of a negative 1 is I. So 3i come outside the radical, and the square root of 3 stays inside the radical. So it's 3i square root of 3 is the answer for problem number 4. Okay, as we move on now, we know that the square root of a negative 1 is I. That's this big, huge statement right down here. The square root of a negative 1 is I. We've established that it's an imaginary number. I want you to take a look at something here for a second. If we take the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, we get 3. The square root of 7 times the square root of 7 is 7. The square root of x times the square root of x is x. So I ask you this question. The square root of a negative 1 times the square root of a negative 1 is the number underneath the radical, which is a negative 1. So the square root of a negative 1 times the square root of a negative 1 is a negative 1. Now let's break this down a step further. What is the square root of a negative 1? The square root of a negative 1 is I. We established that in the first 3 or 4 slides. So I multiplied by I, because the square root of a negative 1 times the square root of a negative 1 is I times I, which gives us a negative 1. So I times I is a negative 1. And if we say I times I, that's the same thing as saying I squared. Imaginary number squared, or I squared, is a negative 1. That's a big part of this lesson now, is whenever you see an I squared, it's no longer imaginary anymore. I squared is a real number. It's a negative 1. So that's what we see here for this next part of the lesson. Whenever you see an I squared, you replace it with a negative 1, because they equal the exact same thing. I squared is a negative 1. So we're going to treat these i's like they're variables. Okay, so x times x is x squared, so I times I is I squared. Okay, that's how we're going to look at these. So when we look at this, we're going to multiply the coefficients. A negative 3 times a positive 2 is a negative 6, and then we're going to multiply the i's. I times I is I squared. And I squared, get it into your brain early, I squared is always, always, always a negative 1. So now it's saying a negative 6 multiplied by I squared, and I squared is a negative 1. So what's our answer here? A negative 6 times a negative 1 is a positive 6. There's our answer for problem number 5. I squared turns into a negative 1. Number 6, 4i times 3i. 4 times 3 is 12. I times I is I squared. And I squared is the same thing as a negative 1. So 12 is multiplied now by a negative 1. Our answer is a negative 12 for problem number 6. Problem number 7. Let me warn you about something. In previous lessons, what we've done here is we've multiplied the radicals by each other. So you'd get the square root of 24, and then you'd break that down. You can't do that in this lesson, and the reason for that is because we have negative numbers underneath our radical, so these are imaginary answers. So you cannot multiply the two radicals together right away. You have to simplify them first. So make sure whenever you see a negative number underneath the radical, simplify it. And when I say simplify, I'm basically telling you take out an I. Okay, so let's simplify this. Is 4 times 3 times a negative 1. Let's simplify this. It's 2 times a negative 1. So now the 4 comes outside the radical as a 2. The negative 1 comes outside the radical as an I. And the square root of 3 stays underneath the radical. Multiplied by the negative 1 comes outside the radical as an I. So I square root 2. Now I multiply these two together. I'm going to multiply the coefficients by each other, and I'm going to multiply the radicals by each other. So 2i times 1i is 2i squared, and square root 3 times square root 2 is square root 6. You see I squared. Whenever you see an I squared, you can't leave it like that. You got to replace it with a negative 1. So it's 2 times a negative 1 times the square root of 6. Our answer is a negative 2 square root 6. There's our answer for problem number 7. Negative 2 square root 6. Problem number 8 here, why don't you guys pause the video and try this one on your own. When you try this one on your own, hopefully you've simplified the radical right away. 4 times 2 times a negative 1. 3 times a negative 1. So when we square root the 4, we get 2. Square root of a negative 1 is I. Square root 2. 2i square root 2 is what we get when we simplify the square root of a negative 8. When we simplify the square root of a negative 3, hopefully you got I square root 3. Now we multiply. 2i times I is 2i squared. Square root 2 times square root 3 is square root 6. Finishing this one off, this right here is the same thing as a negative 1. So 2 times a negative 1 is a negative 2 times the square root of 6. Negative 2 square root 6 is our answer for problem number 8. Okay, problem number 9. We're going to break both of these down. This is 9 times 3 times a negative 1. And this is 9 times a negative 1. So for our first one, we get 3i square root 3, because the 9 and the negative 1 come outside the radical. And for our second term, we get 3i. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of negative 1 is I. So now when we multiply, we get 3i times 3i is 9i squared, and the square root of 3 just comes along with it because there's nothing to multiply over here. There's no radical, so it just comes with. So 9i squared times the square root of 3. And I squared is the same thing as a negative 1. So we get a negative 9 multiplied by the square root of 3. I hope that all makes sense to you. Make sure you let me know if you have questions when you get to class tomorrow.